If you're seeing this, it's because something in you already crossed the point of no return. Your quantum nature isn't starting now, it just revealed itself to itself. Only a consciousness that's already been activated would click exactly this video, at exactly this moment in their timeline. You think you just hit play on another video, but in practice, it's the opposite. It was your own quantum nature that used the algorithm, the title, the thumbnail, to reach you. And here's the thing. Once you recognize what's happening, you can't unsee it. From here on out, your life isn't just cause and effect anymore. It's the collapse of possibility in real time. Maybe you've heard about the observer effect, wave collapse, reality responding to consciousness. But one thing is understanding that in books, another is living it in your body, your money, your relationships. What's happening to you isn't a weird phase or too many coincidences. It's your quantum nature recognizing itself, and when that triggers, the process continues even without your permission. This video is going to give you language for experiences you're already living but don't know how to name. I'm going to show you a structure, what's changing inside, how that shows up outside, and how to collaborate instead of fight. I'm taking the weight off technique and the fear of not doing it right. This isn't a lecture, it's a conversation. I'll use pieces of my own story and real-life analogies so you can see yourself in this, not to impress you. Because the field doesn't respond to performance, it responds to recognition. And you, right now, are the observer becoming aware of the fact that you've always been shaping reality just by paying attention to it. You know that feeling when everything suddenly feels off? Not bad, just artificial. Like you've been watching a movie your whole life and someone just whispered in your ear, "Hey, this is just a screen." You're still doing the same things, brushing your teeth, going to work, scrolling through your phone, but there's this weird distance now. It's like you're playing a character in your own life and you can't unsee it. Your consciousness isn't buying the old script anymore, and honestly, that's not a breakdown. That's the observer in you waking up to the fact that the field around you has always been responding to your attention. You just never noticed. Then the synchronicities start hitting differently. I'm not talking about seeing 11:11 on the clock and feeling special. I'm talking about thinking of someone you haven't spoken to in 3 years and 30 seconds later, ping, there's their message. Or feeling this pull to take a different route home, and that detour lands you exactly where you needed to be. You mention a random book in conversation, and 2 days later a stranger hands it to you at a coffee shop. It's so specific, it feels like the universe is messing with you, like there's an inside joke you're finally in on. Your rational mind tries to label it as coincidence, but something deeper knows better. That's your quantum nature starting to bleed through the cracks of the old reality. I remember this one period in my life. I just moved to a new city, didn't know anyone, felt completely lost. Within 2 weeks, I randomly met someone at a bookstore who introduced me to someone else who offered me a project that changed everything. Every step felt like an improbable shortcut, like reality was bending around my attention. My logical brain kept saying, "Relax, it's just luck, you're overthinking." But my body knew something had shifted. There was this frequency I was tuning into without even trying, and the field was reorganizing itself to match. It wasn't magic. It was recognition. I wasn't creating these moments. I was finally noticing that I'd always been part of the signal. Here's what most people don't get. These leaks aren't glitches in the matrix. They're not signs that you're going crazy or becoming delusional. They're evidence that your internal antenna upgraded. Think of it like this. You've always been a radio, but you spent your whole life locked on one static-filled station because that's what everyone else was listening to. Now, you're picking up frequencies that were always there, just outside the range of your old settings. The world didn't change. Your capacity to perceive what was always happening changed. And once you start noticing, you can't go back to pretending you don't see it. The old reality starts crumbling not because it's broken, but because the software running your perception just got an update the old system can't handle anymore. You're not losing your mind, you're expanding it. Those moments when life feels like it's winking at you, that's not randomness. That's the confirmation that you've stepped into a version of reality where your awareness actually shapes what shows up. The pilot auto mode reality can't contain this new level of presence. And trust me, What's coming next will show you exactly why that leaking feeling was never a problem. It was an invitation. So you discovered this whole quantum thing, right? You learned about the observer effect, manifestation, vibrational frequency, and it felt like you'd been handed the cheat codes to reality. You dove in hard. Morning affirmations, scripting, visualization sessions so detailed you could taste the champagne in your imagined future. You treated it like a job, like if you just performed the ritual perfectly enough, reality would have no choice but to deliver. And for a while, maybe it even worked. But then something shifted. The techniques that once felt liberating started feeling like a cage. You weren't manifesting anymore. You were managing. And deep down, you knew something was off. I've been there, trust me. There was this goal I was obsessed with. Doesn't matter what it was, could have been money, could have been a relationship, could have been a career shift. I did everything right. Visualized it every morning, wrote it down in present tense, checked my thoughts like a paranoid security guard. If I caught myself thinking something off-brand for my desired reality, I'd panic and try to course correct with 10 more affirmations. It became exhausting. And the worst part? Nothing was moving. The harder I tried to control the field, the more stuck everything felt. I started blaming myself. Maybe my frequency was wrong. Maybe I had hidden blocks. Maybe I just wasn't spiritual enough. It was like I'd turned manifestation into another way to fail. Then one day I just gave up. Not in a dramatic way. I was just too tired to keep performing. I stopped visualizing, stopped scripting, stopped checking my vibrational alignment every 5 minutes. And you know what happened? Things started moving. Opportunities I'd been forcing toward me suddenly appeared from angles I wasn't even looking at. Conversations I wasn't trying to orchestrate led to exactly what I needed. It was like the universe had been waiting for me to stop yanking on the steering wheel so it could actually drive. That's when I realized I'd been confusing technique with power. I thought the ritual was the engine, but really it was just training wheels to remind me who was observing in the first place. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you when you start this work. Techniques aren't bad, but they're not the point. They're like a finger pointing at the moon. You're supposed to look at the moon, not worship the finger. When you treat a visualization or affirmation like it's a magic spell, you have to perform perfectly, or else nothing works. You've missed the whole game. The field doesn't respond to your performance. It responds to your recognition. Recognition that you're not the character begging for change. You're the consciousness through which change appears. It's like trying to make a seed grow by pulling the plant out of the ground every day to check on it. You're not helping. You're interfering with an intelligence that already knows what to do. The real shift happens when you stop white-knuckling reality and start trusting that your awareness itself is the activation. Techniques can be useful, sure, but only when they serve as reminders, not demands. When you're doing them from a place of, I need this to work or I'm screwed, you're collapsing the field into desperation, not possibility. But when you're doing them or not doing them, from a place of I'm already the observer and the field is already responding, everything changes. And what's coming next will show you exactly what that new relationship with your own attention actually looks like when it's not dressed up in spiritual performance anxiety. Have you ever been in the middle of losing it? Like genuinely upset, angry, spiraling, and suddenly there's this weird split. You're still feeling everything, your heart's racing, your thoughts are loud, but there's this quiet part of you just watching it all happen. It's not judging, not trying to fix it, just observing. Like you're both the storm and the sky holding the storm at the same time. Most people brush past that moment because it feels strange, almost uncomfortable. But that split? That's not dissociation. That's your consciousness recognizing itself for the first time outside the noise. That's the observer waking up, and once you notice it, you can't fully forget it again. I'll never forget this one afternoon. I was stuck in traffic, late for something that felt important at the time, and I could feel the frustration building. My mind was running the usual script. Why does this always happen to me? I should have left earlier. This is ridiculous. Then out of nowhere, I felt this drop. Like someone hit pause on the internal radio. I was still annoyed, but there was suddenly this space around the annoyance. Something in me was just watching. Not the thoughts, not the emotion, just present, just there. My breathing slowed down without me trying. The tension in my shoulders released. And the wildest part? The traffic didn't change, but my relationship to it completely shifted. I wasn't trapped anymore. I was just there, aware. This isn't some mystical experience reserved for monks on mountaintops. It's happening to regular people in grocery store lines, during arguments with their partners, in the middle of boring Zoom calls. You're anxious, but you notice a layer of you that isn't anxious. You're overthinking, but something deeper isn't caught in the loop. That's not a thought about awareness, that's a positional shift. You moved from being inside the movie to sitting in the theater. The story keeps playing, the characters keep reacting, but you know you're not the screen anymore. And that changes everything, because the field doesn't respond to the character's panic. It responds to where the observer places its attention. Here's the key most people miss. The observer isn't an idea you think about. It's a place you operate from. And when you start living from that place, even for a few seconds at a time, you stop being a ping-pong ball getting smacked around by circumstances. You become the one choosing where to focus. Not in a controlling way, but in a way that's honest and clear. Think about it like this. Your quantum nature isn't activated by doing more, thinking better thoughts, or fixing your personality. It's activated by recognizing that you were never just the personality in the first place. You're the consciousness watching it all unfold. And that consciousness has always been shaping the field just by existing. The more you rest in that observer place, the more you notice something incredible. Your life starts reorganizing itself without force. Decisions get easier. Drama loses its grip. You stop getting pulled into every emotional frequency that walks into the room. It's not that you become cold or detached, you just stop mistaking the weather for who you are. And once that becomes your baseline, the way you interact with reality fundamentally shifts. What I'm about to show you next is what happens to your body, your environment, and your day-to-day life when this observer position isn't just a cool moment anymore, it's your new operating system. Okay, so this is where it gets real, and by real, I mean physically uncomfortable before it gets better. You start noticing that your body isn't tolerating things it used to. That friend group that was fine now drains you after 20 minutes. The food you've eaten for years suddenly makes you feel heavy and foggy. Loud environments that never bothered you now feel like someone's scraping the inside of your skull. And the worst part? You start wondering if something's wrong with you. Like maybe you're becoming difficult, oversensitive, or just weak. But here's the truth. Nothing's wrong. Your system just upgraded and not all the old programs are compatible anymore. Your body became a more refined antenna, and it's picking up frequencies, good and bad, that you used to be numb to. I went through a phase where I genuinely thought I was losing my ability to function like a normal person. I'd go to social events I used to enjoy and feel this overwhelming need to leave. Conversations that used to be entertaining felt exhausting and hollow. I'd come home wired and drained at the same time, like I'd absorbed everyone else's static. My mind tried to shame me for it. You're being antisocial, you're overthinking, just relax. But my body was screaming a different message. It wasn't rejecting connection, it was rejecting incoherence. I wasn't becoming weaker. I was becoming more sensitive to what was and wasn't aligned with the frequency I was now operating on. And once I stopped fighting that and started listening, everything shifted. Think of it like this. You just installed a new operating system on your internal computer. Some of the old apps still work fine, but others start glitching, freezing, or crashing the whole system. That's not a bug. That's proof the update actually happened. Your consciousness is running on a different frequency now, and your body is the hardware catching up. So when you feel exhausted after being around certain people, that's not you being judgmental. That's your field recognizing an energetic mismatch. When you suddenly can't stomach the junk food or the mindless scrolling or the surface-level small talk, that's not you becoming difficult. That's recalibration. Your system is becoming more honest, and honesty has a cost in a world that runs on autopilot. So what do you actually do with this? First, stop apologizing for it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you need more silence, why you're saying no to things that don't feel right, or why you're rearranging your life around what your body is telling you. Start treating your physical sensations like data from the field. Tight chest when you're around someone? That's information. Sudden energy boost when you're in a certain environment. That's information too. Your body isn't betraying you, it's become a radar for what matches your quantum nature and what doesn't. Respect the pauses. Protect your energy like it's a finite resource, because in this new system, it is. And no, this isn't spiritual elitism. It's basic maintenance for a more sensitized instrument. Here's what nobody tells you. This isn't a phase you push through to get back to normal. This is the new normal. And once you accept that, you stop trying to force yourself into spaces, relationships, and routines that were built for the old version of you. You start creating a life that actually supports the observer you've become. You let go of the guilt. You trust that the field is reorganizing around your new frequency, even when it looks like you're losing things in the process. Because what's about to happen next, when you stop fighting the recalibration and start working with it, is where the real magic shows up. And I'm talking about manifestations that don't come from force, but from something way deeper. There's this shift that happens when you stop trying to strong-arm reality into giving you what you think you want. Before, manifestation felt like a negotiation with a stingy universe. You had to visualize harder, affirm louder, prove you were worthy enough. Every desire came wrapped in urgency and fear. What if it doesn't happen? What if I'm doing it wrong? You were trying to collapse a specific outcome into existence through sheer willpower, and honestly, it was exhausting. But then something changes. You stop chasing results and start making choices that just feel coherent. Not dramatic, not loud, just aligned. And that's when the field starts responding in ways that look like coincidence, but feel like conspiracy. Like reality was just waiting for you to stop forcing it. I had this moment a couple years back with a work opportunity I'd been obsessing over. I wanted it so badly I could barely think straight. I did all the techniques, vision boards, scripting, the whole toolkit, but nothing moved. Then I hit this point of exhaustion where I just let it go. Not in a bitter way, just in a whatever happens, happens way. A week later, I got offered something completely different that I hadn't even considered. My first reaction was disappointment because it wasn't the thing I'd been fixating on. But I said yes anyway, just because it felt right in my body. That decision opened a chain reaction of connections, projects, and income I never could have planned. The thing I thought I wanted? Turns out it would have been a dead end. The field knew better than my desperate mind did. Here's where it gets interesting. When you're manifesting from force, you're operating from lack. You're telling the field, I don't have this and I need it now or I'm screwed. That frequency collapses outcomes, but they're brittle. They don't last, or they come with weird side effects, or they just feel hollow. But when you're living from the observer position, your actions aren't driven by panic. They're driven by resonance. You say no to things that look good on paper but feel wrong in your gut. You say yes to things that don't make logical sense but align with something deeper. And those micro decisions, they compound. They create pathways the universe, the field, can actually work with. You stop negotiating with things and start dancing with possibilities. The benefits of this are insane, and I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. I mean practically. You become way more resilient when challenges hit because your internal narrative changes. Instead of, why is this happening to me? The universe hates me. It becomes, okay, the field is reorganizing. Let me stay present and see where this is actually going. Relationships start aligning by frequency instead of need. You attract people who match where you are, not where you're pretending to be. Creativity flows easier because you're not strangling it with expectations. You feel a sense of purpose even when nothing looks perfect from the outside. It's not that life becomes problem-free. It's that you stop interpreting every obstacle as evidence that you're doing it wrong. And here's the quantum angle in plain language. When you operate as the observer, you're no longer just interacting with the material world of things. You're interacting with the field of possibilities that exists before things solidify. And possibilities don't respond to force. They respond to your frequency of honesty. When you're being real about who you are and what actually feels aligned, the field has clearer information to work with. It's like the difference between shouting vague directions at someone in a crowd versus calmly pointing them exactly where to go. The louder approach feels more powerful. but the quieter one actually works. And what's coming next is going to stretch this even further. Because once you realize you're not just manifesting a better life, you're remembering what you actually are. The whole game changes on a level most people never even touch. Here's where the whole thing flips on its head. You started this journey wanting to have something: money, love, success, freedom, whatever. You thought quantum mechanics was a toolkit for getting better stuff, and maybe it worked for a while. But then you hit this point where the question changes. It's no longer, how do I get what I want? It becomes, wait, who's the one wanting? And that question cracks everything open, because you realize you weren't trying to gain power. You were trying to remember that you are the power. Not in an egotistical way, but in the most humbling, terrifying, liberating way possible. You're not a separate little self trying to manipulate a big external field. You're the consciousness through which the entire field appears in the first place. This isn't a new idea, by the way. Every spiritual tradition has pointed at this same recognition with different words: kingdom of heaven within you, enlightenment, awakening, non-duality, whatever. But here's what's wild about this moment in history. You don't need to join a monastery or spend 20 years meditating in a cave to access it. People are waking up to their quantum nature in apartments, on subway rides, in the middle of their boring office jobs. It's happening in the most ordinary circumstances, because the field itself is shifting. The old gatekeepers said you needed special training, special lineage, special permission. But consciousness doesn't care about your resume. It's recognizing itself through anyone willing to stop and look. And when you recognize your own nature, not as a concept but as a lived reality, it doesn't just change your personal life, it changes the collective field. Every time someone stops identifying as a victim of circumstances and starts operating as the observer, it creates a ripple. Think of it like a morphic field. The first person to do something has to push through massive resistance. The second person finds it a little easier. By the 100th, the 1000th, it's almost effortless. You remembering who you are makes it easier for the next person to remember. You're not just fixing your own frequency, you're lightening the load of fear, control, and unconsciousness that the whole species has been carrying. That's not spiritual bypassing. That's how fields work. So what does this actually mean for you moving forward? It means the game isn't about accumulating more techniques, more knowledge, more proof that you're doing it right. The game is about living from that recognition, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the world around you is still playing by the old rules. It means you stop waiting for permission to operate as consciousness. You stop apologizing for seeing through the illusions everyone else is still defending. And yeah, that can feel lonely sometimes, but it's also the most connected you'll ever be, because you're no longer isolated in a separate self. You're recognizing yourself as the field experiencing itself in this specific form, in this specific moment. This video is just the beginning, the door opening. There's so much more. Co-creation in groups, collective intentions, timeline navigation, healing that happens through the field instead of just through action. But none of that makes sense until this foundational shift happens. Until you know, not intellectually but experientially, that you're not in the universe trying to get the universe to cooperate. You are the universe becoming aware of itself, one observer at a time. And once that clicks, really clicks, everything else is just refinement. The real work is already done. You've already unlocked your quantum nature. Now it's just about living it, breathing it, and watching the field reorganize around the truth of what you've always been. If you made it this far, this isn't about believing something new. It's about recognizing something that's already operating quietly in your life. The activation didn't depend on you watching this video. What depends on you is how much you'll cooperate with it or resist it. The expansion is automatic, like a tree that grows when it finds space. Your work isn't to push the growth. It's to stop shrinking yourself to fit the old version. Recognize, breathe, and release the identification with the fear stories. Again and again. You can try to go back to the old life, but you'll notice it doesn't fit as well anymore. That's not punishment. That's an invitation. Nothing will be exactly like before, and that's the best news. Your life becomes a conscious part of the evolution of human consciousness itself. If something in you recognized what we talked about here, write in the comments, I am quantum nature recognizing itself. It's not a magic phrase. It's an identity decision you're registering in the field. It's an anchor, a public commitment to the new narrative, a clear signal to your own mind. From today, I play at another level. If this made sense, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not as an automatic YouTube gesture, but as a conscious yes to the next levels of this journey. The upcoming videos will bring advanced protocols for those already feeling this activation. Practices to stabilize the observer, create in the field with ease, and navigate intense changes without losing yourself. Send this video to that person who's been seeing synchronicities everywhere, dreaming differently, feeling something's changing, but doesn't have language for it yet. When you share, you're not just helping the channel, you're strengthening a network of people remembering together. That changes the field. On the end screen, click the video. If you feel completely lost, you are collapsing multiple timelines into a single desired reality. There I go deeper into how to maintain this new identity, even when everything around you seems to fall apart, and why chaos is actually part of quantum realignment.